again for Soul to Soul podcast. We're really just going to get right into it today. There has been some things coming up for us and some things coming up for a lot of people that we've been talking to, our friends, our clients. And one of the things I want to get into today is just some of the day-to-day obstacles that people have to work through when they are kind of starting their own healing journey or their journey through spirituality, or really just their journey of coming back to themselves and connecting with themselves and becoming more conscious of themselves, their thoughts, their actions. So I feel like one of the biggest things, I have to get comfortable now when we get into it. One of the biggest things, or one of the hardest things, and I feel like it's one of the first things that people always start with when going through, like a new healing journey or whatever, is how to learn how to trust their own intuition, their own feelings with certain situations. And I think connected to intuition, the biggest thing I have learned with how to trust your intuition is you just have to kind of do it, and you just have to kind of learn to trust yourself and make certain choices that shows yourself that you have your own back. One of the biggest ways, and it all goes back to self-trust.
I think this is interesting because as I'm sitting here listening to you and thinking about it, I think we have as always, two different journeys with it. I preach meditation. The first, since I had the stroke, I started meditating because it was exercise for my brain, I thought. So I thought, and then I opened up. But then it was sitting in the power, meditation, having that time with yourself to know your own energy. And so all that stuff for me was happening at the same time. Literally meditation was my medication. And I don't think you meditated as much as me, which is, so I'm listening to you and I'm like, well, there's only one way. You have to have that foundation of meditation, but I don't think you did you?
Yeah, I know I never really, I mean, the most I've ever been able to meditate
That's
for
so
is maybe
interesting
15
to me,
minutes.
because I tell everyone that is the door to, your intuition, your connection, all of it. And so
I do believe that too, though. I think meditation is a great tool to use to get you to that space to.
But I'm curious,
energy.
What's another way now?
Well,
I never stopped and thought about that, with you.
Well, I think, I don't know. Feel like I'm very grounded. I feel like I'm a doer. So I do enjoy meditation, but I feel like I need a plan, or I need something I consciously know that I can work on or change. So I was going to say, as an example, to build self-trust, when I was younger, I remember my easiest thing was just saying or doing what I said I was going to do. It was the first thing that I learned how to trust myself was, so if I said I'm going to take the dogs for a walk when I get home from school, then I would remind myself, okay, if you're telling yourself this, Kaylee, in order to build this self-trust, you have to do what you said you're going to do and take the dogs for a walk after school, no matter what, how you feel or what's going on or what comes up. It's saying or doing what you say you're going to do. And sometimes I would be a little careful about what I say I'm going to do then, because I have to make sure, do I really want to do this? Because I know I'm going to do it if I say I'm going to do it. But that was just one of the first.
But I can see that now, especially because we're talking this morning and we're talking about, certain guests we're going to ask on the podcast. Yeah. And you literally just spoke about someone, and a second later you're texting them, and I'm like, Kaylee, wait, we just had this thought. Yeah. And you're done. And I'm like, so sometimes, is that you doing it right away? Is there a urgency because you want to make sure you're trusting yourself, or that it's complete check type of thing? I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of both. Because I think I'm like afraid that if I don't do it when I'm thinking of it, then I'm not going to do it at all. And that's kind of
So it
where
doesn't
that
have
kind
to
of
do with the trust thing then.
No, it
'Cause
does though,
oh.
because that's kind of what I was going to say, where it kind of stems from. When I learned that was in my head, I'm like, okay, Kaylee, well, if you know you don't do it then, like, you're not going to do it ever, and then you can't trust yourself. So I feel like maybe I can do it a little too much. I could definitely see where I can grow in that aspect of learning to let things settle for a second before doing them, or not rushing them or something. But so I feel like I can learn a little bit more balance in that area. But I do feel like that's where it stems from, is my self-trust, because I do remember that self-trust was a really big thing for me. I feel like it was like one of the first things that I learned, and I think it had to do with making sure that I have my own back, because for whatever reason of not feeling like somebody else had my back, or for somebody else not showing up for me the way that they said they would, I remember how much I hated that feeling. And I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna let like that happen again. And I remember I was only like 15. I've talked about this in other podcasts, where I would watch all of these healing videos and stuff, and that's where I learned this like concept.
And I think I learned that spirit always has my back. Like, that's why I like to meditate, or I like to go away with them, or whatever, just in the peace. So it's so interesting that listening to it like side by side, because all ways work as usual, like there's so many roads. But I wonder, like, do you think both would benefit? I know what you're saying would benefit me, because I do probably count on, or tend to, whether leave my power in other people's hands, or wait for them, or whatever it is, where you're just saying you didn't want to, have to rely on someone else. You want to build that trust with yourself. So even though you could do that through meditation and through, what about switching roles? Like,
And I think, like I said, I definitely feel like meditation is something that is very beneficial. And I think it could be that like balance for me, to find that like middle ground where I slow down and I let things settle, or I let things integrate before rushing right into them. And that doesn't mean meditation as in like sitting down and with your eyes closed. It could be like just going for a walk and letting my thoughts be grounded, and letting me work through whatever's coming up to figure out, how I actually want to move forward, instead of just running off of the fear that it's not going to get done type of thing. So yeah, I definitely think it could be. I think it's really just whatever somebody feels pulled to. But I have personally been going on like a lot of walks. I just went on a walk yesterday in between clients by myself, and I really enjoy that time by myself, because I feel like that's exactly what happens. Even if I'm not thinking about anything I'm supposed to be thinking of, there's just this level of groundedness that happens from it that I feel like helps me get to that
So
space.
like, do you reach out to like your loved ones in spirit, or guides, or is it more like, you know what I'm saying, like, oh, can you send me guidance? Or do you do like while you're meditating, or while you're...
No.
I know, that's interesting too to me. So
Yeah.
So when do you...
So when you meditate, you always ask spirit for messages?
No, I don't always ask for... No, I don't always ask... Probably I'm always asking for guidance or something.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily... I don't go through the list, or I'm open to receiving whatever I'm supposed to see, feel, hear, or just be. So, but I think I do talk to them a lot. I definitely do. So you're talking to yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like how? Yeah.
I really do. Yeah, because even like in my Reiki sessions and in meditation, I don't really call on any like guides or angels. yeah, I feel like it's more of a space for me to connect like inward instead of going like up to connect to the spirit world. I feel like I bring my energy inwards to uncover what I've been feeling that I've been putting off, or what I haven't been listening to.
So
that
then
I've
you
been
just
feeling.
go up when you're in a session or when you're with someone else. So it's more, that's interesting. And I think, again, a balance of maybe both. And probably, you know, we've had different journeys ourselves. And I know we both went to Arthur Finley, spiritualist college in England to study for a week. And they did talk about guides and stuff because we drew them.
But I manifested missing that class because I was sick. So it makes sense. When we went to, just a quick recap before we go back to like intuition and obstacles, we went to Arthur Finley College. I think I was my senior year of high school. It was like a mediumship art class that we took with amazing teachers. But during that trip, I think maybe 3 out of the 5 or 3 out of the 7 days, if that I was there, I was extremely sick. Like, not good at all. Could not get out of bed. Couldn't open my eyes. Constantly nauseous. It was bad. So I missed a lot of the classes. And so it makes sense. And I said I manifested that because for whatever reason, there is a reason that I don't connect to guides. I don't think there's a problem with it. I think it is something I could look more into. I don't think it's a good or bad thing, but that's how manifesting works. For some reason, I just wasn't aligned with learning about guides on that level.
And when I learned, like, because I literally was taught that in my very first mediumship course in 2010, and so she told, so when I was taught, we all have, I think, like 7 guides, and she broke them down. And I don't necessarily believe anything unless it actually comes to me. And it's not that I don't, well, it's that I don't believe it. I believe more now, but I feel like if it, you know, it's out there for everyone, but what comes to you is supposed to come to you. So for me, I did have guides popping up. I heard them, and then I look them up, and it's a real guy, Indian guide or whatever. I'm like, oh my God. So, and I would get validation after so they know how I work. You know, I'm going to be like, okay, what's next? What's next? And then follow it. I follow what comes to me. So it's just different. It's just different.
That's what I was going to say, which is a whole obstacle in itself. And I want to go back to intuition, so don't let us forget about that. But that in itself is a whole obstacle of judging your own journey and what's coming up for you and how you think your journey should look or what you think should be happening in this journey. Whereas I feel like we're able to recognize we have 2 completely different journeys, and neither of them are right or wrong.
No, you can pull from each other when needed or when guided. And I think it's interesting because I would like to explore some of that going within deeper. I go within deeper, but it's connected to spirit all the time. But for myself, and I don't know, whenever you're guided to explore the other, but ultimately, I think we are both listening to a higher power, period. Because I know I am, because that is my intuition. If, you know, the guide or comes to me and then I search and I work with him or, you know, whatever comes of it. And then same thing.
I'm moving the energy a different way. Like I said, I'm going inward, but like we talked about in the other episodes, that energy is all of the same and it's all connected. It's just, this is how I need this energy and that's how you need this energy. And so if we can let go of what we think our journey should look like, or that this has to happen and then this has to happen and then I have to connect with my guides and meet my guides and then I have to build a relationship with them.
Which that's something I think we do similar, probably because you're cut from the same cloth or whatever they say. But because what I was taught, I still made it my own. You know, people go further into it and they need their guide, and again, it's okay for them, or they do certain things or rituals around it, which is okay. But for me, I've always done my own thing when it came to even like I was taught things, but I always discerned, was that for me? It might be for this person next to me in the class or whatever. So I think we both do that, which is, again, our own intuition. It's the connection to ourself, trusting ourself.
And that's what it is. It's trusting, it's literally trusting our journeys and where we're at and what we need and what we feel connected and what we feel pulled to.
And that's why I think that nobody can teach you your journey. We have guides along the way, we have teachers along the way that are supposed to be there. But when something sticks out and you hear something or you feel something, that's what you follow, not necessarily, the whole template of the class. Like you just pick out what you're feeling called to. So always just being aware of that.
And I think just the more that we're talking about this, the more I feel like the energy of trust is at like the core of yourself and of your healing journey and how to move forward, whether it's trust in the spirit world and trust in the guides and where you feel supported, or it's trust in yourself. It's learning how to have trust in something that's going to help you to move forward, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, but that trust, I feel like trust is almost like it goes hand in hand with intuition, because your intuition is how you feel. And without the trust, you're never going to be able to acknowledge the intuition and move forward with the intuition, and vice versa. So it does kind of go hand in hand with learning how to trust your own intuition or how to tune into your intuition, because and I'm going to talk about this in my class that I have coming up next week in Orland Park, but it's about like your intuition is always there. It's always something that is always connected to you. It's nothing that you have to try to grow, because you're already connected to it. What you try to grow is the trust with your intuition. Like that's what you're learning more in, because what you feel, like I said, you're always connected to it. It's just learning how to trust it and how to tune into it.
And the two words my very first teacher, very first day of class said was awareness and discernment. And I think with that, I think that is your intuition, like having the awareness and then discerning, how does it feel now? So like you're giving me information, how am I feeling when I'm hearing it? It's not right or wrong, but maybe I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, so there's something within me that's like, oh, I want to explore that a little more. Or something's like, or whatever, then maybe I just don't want to and it's okay. Or, but that's, and then trusting and moving forward from that.
Yeah. And that's where letting go of the judgment comes in too, of what your journey looks like versus what your friend's journey looks like versus whoever's journey.
Your daughter.
It's learning to let go of, when you let go of that judgment, it lets go of like a pressure that you put on yourself for how things have to be. And it allows you, like you said, to be more open or more curious, to trust yourself, to trust what you're going through, to trust and value and honor yourself and your journey and your thoughts and your opinions and everything else that comes with it. Like letting go of that judgment allows all of that to flourish, which is what allows you to keep moving forward in alignment with where you're supposed to be going, I feel like. I wanted to talk about too, another thing that's been coming up is with the idea of spirituality and healing and grief, how that, or the journey of healing and the journey of spirituality can affect your relationships with your friends, with your family, with yourself. Well, I feel like we just talked about that, but relationships in general, because I feel like when you do go on this journey of becoming more aware or more in tune, It also, from my experience, it has brought me a level of sensitivity that I didn't know came with it. Like, I can even talk as simple as the fact that we're vegan, and my physical body can't handle, the same foods that everybody else's can. Sometimes I literally wish I could just eat an Oreo without feeling sick, or a milkshake.
Exactly. I remember my last meat meal was this veggie meatloaf, turkey meat, and I was so excited because I made it so healthy. And when I took it out, something made me sick, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I never ate meat again. But I remember talking to my guides and saying, "Okay, seriously, now I can't eat meat? Like, this is ridiculous." But sensitivity, yes. There's always more being in a crowded space. I never really loved crowded spaces, but it's way different now. Like, I have to bubble up. I have to do certain things to really ground myself in myself to be able to get through things. And it's, sensitivity.
I want to go back really quickly, because that doesn't mean, if you're sensitive, then you're not going to be able to eat meat or whatever.
I want to again, our journey.
Yeah, because there's a lot of there's a whole nother aspect or a whole nother perspective on eating meat, where people honor the animal and they honor what it gives them
and it
their
grounds
journey.
Their energy.
So it's simply just our personal journeys, but we're able to tune into that and feel that, and I know how it makes me feel. So.
Was mad about it for me. I was like, no, and I push it whenever stuff comes to me like that. And I just push it because I'm like, no, I don't want to be. I was judging it.
Yeah.
That person that now can't eat meat. Oh, she, whatever. I was judging it, but I also listened. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the same way with drinking alcohol. I never, I got into this before I even turned 21, so my 21st birthday was probably the one and only time I got drunk or drank a normal or lot amount of alcohol. I don't even think I had that much, maybe 4 drinks and I was done. So there is a level of no tolerance for it, but it's also I'll have just one drink and my next day will be ruined or disgusted, and I know people are fine with that, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but I personally just don't like how it makes me feel and how I feel even the next following days, and I'm able to tune into that and honor that, and so I try to just stay away from it. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have a drink once in a while or whatever. I when I have a feeling I could have a drink tonight, then I'll go and have one. It's very rare, but I still allow myself to be human.
And I have always been sensitive to alcohol, but since the stroke, since my journey, I have for sure been way more sensitive. But I also enjoy once in a while, just, I don't know, relaxing or having wine. And so I'll take the next day of feeling like crap sometimes because I do, since for me, in my journey, I do strive for being human too. I get mad sometimes, well, now I can't do this. I can't be this person. So I really try to incorporate some of the old me. I call him the old me, but just all of it because the balance of it. But it is hard because I am super sensitive.
But that's the judgment that we have on ourselves too coming up, because it's I feel okay, I know all this stuff. I know alcohol's not good for me, or I know this, or I know how it makes me feel. So why am I going to go have a drink? But if we can also honor we're just human, and sometimes you just need a space to get out of your head. Because that's what I was going to say, that judgment, because when you're on this healing journey, we've talked about this, sometimes we can get too stuck in our head or too aware. That was the last episode. And so sometimes doing things like that, like having a drink of alcohol, or we can have this like judgment on ourselves that that's wrong or that's bad or you shouldn't need to do that. And if we can realize like, yeah, we know we don't need to, like we're at that point where I know I don't need to, I'll be good without it, but it's okay to want it once in a while.
I was going to say, so how does that affect your company, your friends, your environment? Like, would you say you like to hang out with spiritual people, or that's even hard to say because spiritual people are so different, you know. Some drink alcohol, some don't, so you can't even say that. But who do you like to spend your time with? Is it hard for you, your age group, your all of that?
I feel like this is actually something that's been coming up a lot more for me recently. And I feel like what I'm learning, because sometimes I can get stuck in my head and be like, I just don't want to be around that group of people and it just doesn't make me feel good and blah, blah, blah. And for a period of time, that's how
The group of people, you mean people
just
who...
any group of people, like whatever idea in that moment that I was thinking in my head, whether it's like the bar scene or whether it's I don't know, going out to eat all the time or whatever group of people that was in my head. And I would tell myself this, but I feel like now I'm stepping more into like, and I think that was all just my judgment that I was having on those people or that group, and how I don't want to be like that, or what that means about me if I'm going to the bar every weekend. And so I think now I'm learning to let go of all of that judgment and see, yeah, I can go and have this experience and I can see what comes of it and I can listen to people, because again, we are always experiencing what we need to experience. And sometimes we can stop ourselves from experiencing certain things. Like I said, saying that to myself, I just don't want to connect with those people, or I just don't feel comfortable or accepted. I feel like I'm starting to see now how maybe 50% of that was my own fault of separating myself, of telling myself I can't connect with them. Whereas I'm learning more and more that if I want to go to a bar for a weekend, they're still human. I can still talk to them, whether they're, you know, under the influence or not. They're still saying words that have some meaning. And so there can be some connection there. And whether it's something I need to hear from them or something they need to hear from me, it's a level of like letting go of the judgment that I have on, not on them, but on myself, on what that means to me, and like all of that, if that makes sense.
That's a good point, because I do judge myself often. And it's a journey. I've, you know, aware of it and work with it all the time. So I should say I have a tendency. But I was at a bar party and I ended up, I had a few drinks. I ended up channeling, because sometimes that happens. And so when it happened, it was really profound, because you were saying sometimes, you know, just being there with the people, it's not someone I would talk to normally. So in that, I received a message too, even though I was drinking under the influence. The next day when I was thinking about it, I was just like, I needed to hear what I needed to hear from it as well, just as he did. So yeah, that makes sense. So instead of so for me, like, oh my God, I channeled again, like, oh, and I was mad at myself because why do I always do that? And I was like, well, you were bored, because sometimes I get bored at the bar because like if I can't sing karaoke or do something, like I can't just sit there and, you know, drink and not have a stimulating conversation. And a lot of times, at the bar, sometimes you're not able to, for whatever reasons, because people are just, you know, either too intoxicated or, but you get to, sometimes it also opens the door to, a lot of times, their emotions. But it's different though, because they're saying it, they're getting it out, and you're hearing, you know, whatever they're saying that needs to be said. But at the same time, sometimes it gets lost in the alcohol a little bit, and that's a pattern that could happen too, I've seen. But anyway.
So just going back to how all of that, excuse me, can affect our relationships with those close to us. So like I said, there was a period of time where I felt like I was more alone in this journey, or like there wasn't a lot of people that I can connect with or talk to. But what I'm learning now, like I said, is how 50% of that was me. So I feel like I'm stepping more into this journey of just letting go of the judgment that I have on myself and about what things mean, and really starting to honor every single experience that I have and every single person that I meet. I think I'm also really learning how to listen without the judgment behind it, because when you can do that to these strangers or these people in the bars or whatever, you can get more out of it. So like I said, I feel like I'm just learning to be more open, and I feel like it is strengthening my connection with people that I never thought I would have a strong connection with, or old friends that I didn't think I would reconnect with, and stuff like that.
That's interesting, because for so long after the beginning of my journey, and I didn't really drink, I couldn't drink, or well, I probably could have, but I didn't want to. But my family and friends still did. And I remember I would go into, I don't know if it's, I was sad a lot. I was disconnected for sure. So I was judging on some level, probably even judging myself, but I was disconnected with them. And I would think about what was coming up for me in my journey that far, like, because it was a journey of self, reflection, and why am I here, and why do where's my place in this family, in this world, whatever, all this stuff. And so being at family parties, or a lot of times my mind would go down like, oh my God, like this pattern's here. Like I would see things. It would be very hard for me to not connect all these things and feel this pain that I am seeing in front of me, connected to me and my journey. But it also, just like, Wayne Dyer would always say, like, once you label something, you negate it. Like, it's like, then that's the label forever. So me taking everything that I have learned up until that point and putting it on this scenario, I think held me in fear, disconnection from them, from myself. And what good was it doing? Like not that I consciously wanted to, but then I started doing like this practice of bubbling up, and like, I don't want to be psychic at my parties I go to or by my friends, or I don't want to be like tuned in. I just want to be. But it took like really trying to practice that and learn to disconnect from that part of it.
And I think when that happens, that's when you learn how to honor the person sitting in front of you for where they're at, instead of that judgment of trying to see the patterns. That's the too much awareness comes in, because it stops you from having this connection right in front of you. So on one hand, self-awareness and healing, it is such a great and beautiful thing and journey, but it's finding that balance where you're not forgetting to be in the present moment. You're not forgetting to connect with the person sitting across from you without thinking too deep into it, or without trying to figure something out or connect the dots.
But at the same time, I do think it's okay to have a grace period, because you're in after your awakening. And again, we talked about this before. We have tons of awakenings like throughout our life. So it's not like a one and done. We're here. We're here to learn, to explore, and to live. But I think there is grace periods connected to these big awakenings that we have, because we have to figure it out and maneuver through it. So again, I didn't do anything wrong. I learned, now do this, now bubble up, now, because they weren't. Now it makes sense, because we're talking about the obstacles and in relationships and stuff. I was told by some family members, like, you've changed. And I'm like, well, of course I changed, but they thought I was like this, completely different person. And maybe I was. And, but I was like, but I'm not, I'm still me. But they were getting what I was feeling. You know what I mean? Like I was trying to learn and navigate, don't be psychic here, don't whatever. And they were probably feeling a huge disconnection on their part too, which I would never have thought that until this moment. I'm like, that's interesting.
But now looking back, like you said, it wasn't a good thing or a wrong thing or a right thing. It's that journey served you for that period of time, however it did. It kept you safe, however it did. It allowed you to go deeper into yourself so that now you can step more into that reconnection side of it.
I think that's a key word, kept you safe, because I think a lot of what we do for ourselves is we try to keep ourselves safe. So sometimes that means we hold things back. We're not vulnerable. We're not open. We're isolated because we're just trying to be safe.
And that is where the no judgment comes in, because if we can see something that we're judging as bad or wrong that we did, but if we can see our internal intentions were really just to keep ourselves safe, like it allows us to have way more compassion for ourselves, and it helps us to just move forward differently than when we don't feel the need to repeat that, whatever it was, if that makes sense. But yeah, if we can definitely see like a lot of the things that we do unconsciously or consciously, because sometimes when you're aware, you can get mad at yourself if you do something unconsciously and you're looking back at it and it's like, why did I do that? I should have known better. I knew, I shouldn't have gone and done this, or I knew this was bad for me, or I knew I should have spoke my truth in this moment. But for whatever reason, you didn't do that, or you had a hard time. And if you can see, there was a part of you that felt unsafe. And so you were just trying to keep yourself safe from not speaking your truth, or from not doing this thing, or whatever it is. Then we step into compassion, and then we can move forward differently the next time it comes up.
What would you suggest if you want to experience like going to a bar, say, or a family party, or something that typically could be challenging for you because you go into these other places and judge or whatever it is. But what would you say, how do you honor yourself and honor them, the experience? Meaning, because I can show up and we're givers, we work with energy, we can, be happy and still accept, but how would you be yourself? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, how would you honor yourself and your own experience in a setting that you normally wouldn't put yourself in, maybe? But you would go because you want to be, you want to have it all, but not maybe your every week thing.
I don't think I could necessarily say exactly how that would happen. I think it just comes from honoring yourself in that moment for what's coming up for you. So like there's times where I'll go to the bar and I really don't feel like drinking and everyone's trying to get me to have a drink, but I'm like, I'm good with water. Like that's fine too. And I'm honoring myself. But I think too, part of it is just allowing you to be you and to do what you want and to say what you want without thinking like, oh, these people are judging me, or oh, these people are looking at me this way because I have water in my hand, or whatever. So just seeing that, how there's no really one way on how you can honor yourself, but if you can just be aware or conscious of what you want. Like there's times where I'll go to a family party and I'll leave after 2 hours and everyone's there for another 5 hours, but I also know my limits and what I need and what I can't take, or when I get exhausted. That is something that happens to me at like family parties or when going out. I do get drained really easily, but I feel like I just honor that. I don't try to push myself and stay the extra 5 hours because I know I'm not going to be any fun anyway. So, just listen to my limits or what I feel. I also just do like, really whatever I see as fun. If I'm going to like an outing like that or a bar or whatever, I'm going to try to figure out a way that I can have fun. I'm going to make sure, okay, well, if I'm going to the bar, then I want it to have a pinball game.
Yeah,
or
that's why I said, like, unless there's karaoke or a slot machine or a good conversation, I'm bored. Then I'm like, spirit.
Yeah.
Where are you?
So that it's just like having fun. Whereas in that setting, people think having a drink is fun, and that's fine. But there's other things that we can do. If you don't think having a drink is fun, find something else that you think is fun, or go to a bar that has karaoke or has games that you can play. So it's like a mix of both. I think it's honoring yourself in that way. Don't force yourself to go to a bar where there's nothing to do there and all there is to do or drink, and that's not what you have fun with. There's ways to find the middle ground so that, everybody in the group is happy, including you. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I definitely feel like this is something that I want to keep talking about. Maybe we can follow it up in the next episode, but just talking more into family dynamics, because we talked about just the sensitivity of everything and how it affects like our friendships in that way. But I feel like there's a lot, I feel like we can go a lot deeper into it on how it affects our personal relationships and stuff like that. But thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.